I was 62 years old when I won $18 million in the Powerball lottery. I grabbed my purse, my heart pounding like a drum, and drove straight to my husband's law firm downtown. After 41 years of marriage, I wanted him to be the first to know. When I stepped off the elevator on the 12th floor, I heard sounds coming from his corner office that made my blood run cold. But let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how I got to that moment. My name is Dorothy Mae Henderson, and I grew up in a small town outside of Savannah, Georgia. My mama cleaned houses for wealthy white families, and my daddy worked at the paper mill until his back gave out. We didn't have much, but we had love. Mama always told me that education was the ticket out of poverty, so I studied hard and earned a scholarship to Spelman College in Atlanta. That's where I met Harold. Harold James Henderson was everything I thought I wanted. He was tall, handsome, and ambitious. He was in his second year at Morehouse when we met at a campus mixer. He had dreams of becoming a lawyer, of building something important. He said he wanted a partner by his side, someone smart and strong. He said he wanted me. We got married the summer after I graduated. I was 21 years old, full of hope and dreams of my own. I had wanted to go to graduate school, maybe become a professor, but Harold said we couldn't afford it, not with him still in law school. He said I should work for a few years, help support us, and then it would be my turn. My turn never came. First, there was Harold's law school debt. Then there was the down payment on our first house. Then I got pregnant with our son, Michael. Then our daughter, Patricia. Then Harold said it didn't make sense for me to work because daycare cost more than I would earn, so I stayed home. I raised our children. I supported my husband's career. I kept his house spotless, his meals hot, his shirts pressed, and slowly, over the years, I disappeared. It happened so gradually that I didn't even notice at first. Harold handled all the finances. He gave me a household allowance each month, cash in an envelope like I was a child receiving lunch money. When I asked about our investments, our savings, our retirement accounts, he would pat my hand and say, "Don't worry your pretty head about that, Dorothy. I'm the lawyer. I know what I'm doing." When the children were in high school, I wanted to go back to work. I had seen an advertisement for a librarian position at the public library. I had always loved books. Harold laughed, actually laughed. He said, "What would people think if my wife had to work? They'd think I couldn't provide for my family." So I stayed home. When our children left for college, I suggested maybe I could volunteer somewhere, do something meaningful with my time. Harold said I was needed at home to entertain his clients, to host dinner parties, to maintain his image as a successful attorney. So I stayed home. 41 years. 41 years of cooking, cleaning, smiling, and pretending. 41 years of watching my husband build his empire while I faded into the wallpaper. 41 years of hearing him tell people at parties, "Dorothy doesn't work. She's never had to work a day in her life." As if raising 2 children, running a household, and supporting his career wasn't work. As if I hadn't sacrificed my own dreams for his. By the time I turned 60, something had shifted inside me. I felt invisible in my own life. My children were grown with families of their own. Michael lived in Chicago with his wife and 2 kids. Patricia was in Seattle, climbing the corporate ladder. They called on holidays, visited when they could, but they had their own lives now, and I had nothing. Harold was 64 and busier than ever. He had made partner at his firm 20 years ago, and now he was one of the most respected corporate attorneys in Atlanta. He worked late most nights. He traveled frequently for business. When he was home, he was on his phone or his laptop, always working. We hadn't had a real conversation in years. We hadn't been intimate in longer than I could remember. I had become nothing more than furniture in his life. Decorative, functional, forgettable. Then, 3 months ago, everything changed. It started with a lottery ticket. I had never played the lottery before. Harold called it a tax on stupid people. But that Tuesday afternoon, I was at the gas station filling up the car, and something made me walk inside and buy a ticket. Maybe it was rebellion. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just boredom. I picked my own numbers, the birthdays of my children and grandchildren, and I tucked the ticket into my wallet and forgot about it. 2 days later, I was watching the morning news when they announced the winning numbers. I almost didn't check, but something nagged at me, So I dug the ticket out of my wallet and compared the numbers. Then I checked them again. And again. They matched. All 6 numbers. I sat down on the kitchen floor and cried. $18 million. After taxes, it would be about $11 million. More money than I had ever imagined. More money than Harold made in his entire career. My first instinct was to tell him. Of course it was. He was my husband. We were partners. This was our money, wasn't it? But something made me pause. Something made me careful. I called the lottery commission and learned that I had 90 days to claim the prize. They advised me to consult with a lawyer and a financial advisor before coming forward. They said I could remain anonymous in Georgia, that my name didn't have to be made public. I needed time to think. For the next week, I walked around in a daze. I cooked Harold's meals. I did his laundry. I smiled when he came home and asked about his day. All the while, that lottery ticket burned a hole in my wallet. I started paying attention to things I had ignored for years. The way Harold spoke to me, dismissive and condescending. The way he never asked about my day, my thoughts, my feelings. The way he looked right through me, like I wasn't even there. And I started noticing other things too. The late nights at the office that had increased dramatically over the past year. The business trips every other weekend. The way he angled his phone away from me when he texted. The new cologne he had started wearing, something expensive that I hadn't bought him. One night, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I knew I shouldn't look, but something told me I needed to. The message was from someone named Amber. Miss you already, baby. Can't wait until next weekend. XOXO. My hands were shaking as I put the phone back down. I felt sick. I felt stupid. I felt vindicated. For years, I had suspected something was wrong. For years, I had told myself I was being paranoid, insecure, foolish. Harold would never cheat on me. We had been married for 4 decades. We had children together, grandchildren together. But now I knew the truth. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't cry or scream or throw things. I went to bed and lay perfectly still while my husband slept beside me, snoring peacefully, dreaming of his mistress. And I made a plan. The next morning, I called my cousin Linda. Linda had gotten divorced 15 years ago after her husband cheated, and she had come out the other side stronger and smarter. She gave me the name of her divorce attorney, a woman named Carolyn Matthews. I made an appointment for the following week. Carolyn's office was downtown, not far from Harold's firm. I was terrified someone would see me, would tell Harold. But I walked in with my head held high and sat down across from this fierce, intelligent woman who looked me in the eye and asked me what I wanted. No one had asked me what I wanted in 40 years. I told her everything. The marriage, the control, the allowance, the message from Amber, and the lottery ticket. Carolyn listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Dorothy, do you know what marital property is?" I shook my head. She explained that in Georgia, any assets acquired during the marriage were considered marital property, to be divided equally in a divorce. That meant that if I claimed the lottery winnings now, Harold would be entitled to half. My heart sank, but then she smiled. "However," she said, "there are strategies we can employ to protect your assets, especially if your husband is engaged in marital misconduct." She explained that if Harold was having an affair, and if I could prove it, the court might look favorably on my case. She also explained that I should document everything, gather evidence, and most importantly, not do anything to tip him off. I left her office with a folder full of paperwork and a spark of something I hadn't felt in decades: hope. Over the next month, I became a detective in my own marriage. I checked phone records, credit card statements, calendar entries. Harold thought I was too stupid, too docile, too domesticated to ever suspect anything. He had gotten careless. What I found made me sick. Amber Collins was 34 years old. She worked as a paralegal at a firm Harold sometimes collaborated with. They had been seeing each other for 3 years. 3 years. He had taken her on trips to Miami, to New York, to the Bahamas. Trips, he told me, were for business. He had bought her jewelry. Expensive jewelry. A diamond necklace. Earrings. A bracelet. All charged to a credit card I didn't know existed. He had rented an apartment for her, A luxury condo in Buckhead, paid for with money he told me we didn't have when I asked about taking a vacation last summer. But the worst part, the part that made me want to scream, was that he had promised to marry her. I found the emails. He told her he was going to leave me. He told her I was boring, sexless, a millstone around his neck. He told her that as soon as he could figure out the finances, he would file for divorce and they would start their new life together. The finances. That's what he was worried about. Not me, not our marriage, not our children. The finances. He was trying to figure out how to leave me with nothing. I printed every email, every credit card statement, every piece of evidence I could find. I gave it all to Carolyn, who reviewed it with barely concealed satisfaction. "Dorothy," she said, "we've got him." But I wasn't ready yet. I needed to claim my lottery winnings first, and I needed to do it carefully. Carolyn referred me to a financial advisor named Marcus Thompson, a serious young man who specialized in sudden wealth. He helped me understand my options. We decided to set up a trust to receive the lottery winnings. The trust would be in my name alone, established before any divorce proceedings. Georgia law was complicated, but Marcus believed that with the right documentation and the evidence of Harold's misconduct, we could argue that the winnings were my separate property. It wasn't guaranteed. Nothing was guaranteed. But it was my best chance. I claimed the lottery prize quietly, with no fanfare, no press conference. $11 million, after taxes, deposited into a trust account. I didn't touch a penny of it. I didn't change my lifestyle. I continued to take my household allowance from Harold, continued to cook his meals and wash his clothes. He had no idea. And then came the day I decided to end it. It was a Thursday afternoon. I had just come from a meeting with Carolyn, finalizing the divorce papers. I was ready to confront Harold, to tell him I knew everything, to watch his face crumble as he realized his perfect little wife wasn't so perfect after all. I drove to his office building, my heart pounding. I hadn't been there in years. Harold didn't like me dropping by unannounced. It was unprofessional, he said. Well, I was about to be very unprofessional. I parked in the garage and took the elevator to the 12th floor. The receptionist, a young woman I didn't recognize, looked up with a polished smile. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Harold Henderson," I said. "I'm his wife." Something flickered across her face. Surprise? Pity? I couldn't tell. "Mr. Henderson is in his office," she said carefully. "But he's, in a meeting." "That's fine," I said. "I'll wait in his office." I didn't wait for her response. I walked down the hallway I remembered from years ago, past the conference rooms and the junior associates' cubicles, to the corner office with Harold's name on the door. The door was closed. I reached for the handle, and that's when I heard them. A woman's laugh, low and intimate. Harold's voice murmuring something I couldn't make out. Then more laughter. Then a moan. I stood frozen in that hallway, my hand on the door handle, my divorce papers in my purse, my lottery millions in the bank, and I listened to my husband of 41 years with another woman. Something inside me went very, very calm. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. They were on the leather couch. Harold's couch, the one he had insisted on buying because it made him look successful. His shirt was unbuttoned, his pants around his ankles. She was young, blonde, beautiful. Amber Collins, I assumed. They scrambled apart like teenagers caught by their parents. Harold's face went from flushed to pale in seconds. "Dorothy," he gasped, "what are you doing here?" I stood in the doorway, looking at the man I had given my life to, the man who had promised to love and honor me, the man who had made me small. "Getting my life back," I said. What happened next was chaos. Harold tried to explain. It wasn't what it looked like. She meant nothing to him. He loved me. He had always loved me. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. Amber was crying, grabbing her clothes, trying to escape. She pushed past me in the doorway, mascara running down her face. I let her go. She wasn't my concern. I walked into Harold's office and sat down in the chair across from his desk. The same chair where clients sat, I imagined. The chair for people who needed something from him. "Sit down, Harold," I said. He sat. He had pulled his pants up but hadn't bothered with his shirt. He looked ridiculous, pathetic, old. I know everything, I said. The apartment in Buckhead, the trips, the jewelry, the credit card, the promises you made to her. His face went gray. I have documentation of all of it. My attorney has copies. So does my financial advisor. Your attorney? His voice cracked. Your financial advisor? Dorothy, what are you talking about? I'm talking about our divorce, Harold. He started to bluster. He couldn't afford a divorce. His reputation, his career. What would people think? We could work this out. We could go to counseling. He would end things with Amber. He would change. I let him talk. I had listened to him talk for 41 years. A few more minutes wouldn't kill me. When he finally ran out of words, I stood up. I'll have my attorney send the papers, I said. You can expect them Monday. I was at the door when he said, You won't get a dime, Dorothy. I'll make sure of it. I have the best lawyers in the city. You'll be out on the street. I turned back to look at him, this man I had loved, this man I had wasted my life on. Harold, I said, I don't need your money. And I walked out. The divorce was ugly. I knew it would be. Harold hired the most aggressive attorney he could find. He contested everything. He claimed I had been a neglectful wife, that I had contributed nothing to the marriage, that I deserved nothing but the minimum the law required. His attorney tried to subpoena my financial records. That's when they discovered the trust. That's when Harold learned about the lottery. I will never forget the look on his face in that deposition room when my attorney presented the documentation. The winning ticket, purchased with my own money. The trust, established in my name alone. The $11 million that would never, ever be his. You won the lottery? He whispered. I did. When? 3 months ago. And you didn't tell me? I looked at him across that table, at the man who had controlled every aspect of my life, who had made me feel worthless, who had cheated on me for 3 years while planning to leave me with nothing. No, Harold, I said. I didn't. He tried to fight it, of course. He claimed the winnings were marital property, that he was entitled to half, but my team was prepared. We had documentation of his affair, his financial misconduct, his years of controlling behavior. We had witnesses, employees at his firm who had seen him with Amber. We had everything. The judge was a woman in her 50s named Patricia Webb. She reviewed the evidence carefully, listened to the arguments, and made her ruling. The lottery winnings were mine. Harold had forfeited any claim through his egregious marital misconduct. Furthermore, given his deception regarding family finances and his years of controlling behavior, I was entitled to 60% of our marital assets. Harold's face went purple. His attorney had to physically restrain him from lunging across the courtroom. I walked out of that courthouse a free woman. The first thing I did was buy a house. Not a mansion, nothing flashy. A beautiful 4-bedroom Craftsman in Virginia Highland, with a garden and a porch and room for my grandchildren to visit. I decorated it myself, chose every color, every piece of furniture. It was mine. The second thing I did was call my children. I had kept them out of the worst of it, not wanting to burden them, but they needed to know the truth. Michael flew in from Chicago. Patricia came from Seattle. We sat in my new living room, and I told them everything. The lottery, the affair, the divorce, the settlement. They were angry. Angry at their father. Angry that I had suffered in silence for so long. Michael wanted to confront Harold. Patricia wanted to cut him out of their lives entirely. But I told them something I had learned through all of this. Holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Their father had made his choices. He would live with the consequences. But they didn't need to carry that burden. They could forgive him without forgetting. They could have a relationship with him if they chose, or not. It was their decision. But I didn't want my freedom to cost them their peace. The third thing I did was finally go back to school. At 62 years old, I enrolled in a master's program in library science at Georgia State University. I was the oldest person in my classes by decades. I didn't care. I loved every minute of it. I wrote papers on children's literacy and the future of public libraries. I made friends with students young enough to be my grandchildren. I graduated with honors 2 years later. Today, I volunteer at the Atlanta Public Library 3 days a week. I read to children, help adults learn to read, organize book drives for underserved communities. I don't need the money. I never needed the money. I needed a purpose. The fourth thing I did was start a foundation. The Henderson Foundation for Women's Independence. Yes, I kept his name. I wanted the irony. The foundation provides grants and support for women leaving controlling relationships. We help with legal fees, housing, job training, education. We help women find their voices again. I know what it's like to feel invisible. I know what it's like to disappear inside your own life. I know what it's like to believe you have no options, no power, no future. I want other women to know that it's never too late. As for Harold, I hear he's still practicing law, though his reputation took a hit. Amber left him eventually, moved to Florida with someone her own age. He's alone now, rattling around in the big house we used to share, the house that's slowly falling apart because he never learned to take care of anything himself. Sometimes I feel sorry for him. He gave up everything real for everything fake. He traded a partner for a possession, a marriage for an arrangement, love for control, and in the end, he lost it all. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. I think about my grandchildren, about watching them grow up, about teaching them to love books and learning. I think about my students at the library, about the light in their eyes when they finally sound out a difficult word. I think about the women my foundation has helped, about their letters and emails telling me they've started new lives, found new jobs, discovered new dreams. I think about Dorothy, the girl from Savannah who wanted to be a professor, the young woman who fell in love with a man who promised her the world, the wife who gave everything and received so little in return, the mother who raised two beautiful children while losing herself in the process, the woman who found a lottery ticket in her purse and found her freedom. I spent 41 years of my life waiting for permission to exist. I'm done waiting. If you're listening to this story and something in it sounds familiar, if you've been made to feel small or stupid or worthless, if you've been told your dreams don't matter, or that you're nothing without someone else, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. You are not too old, too young, too anything. It took me 62 years to learn that I was the author of my own story. It doesn't have to take you that long. The lottery ticket was luck, but everything that came after was choice. I chose to open my eyes. I chose to ask for help. I chose to fight for myself. And I chose to become the woman I was always meant to be. The sun is shining today. I'm sitting on my porch in my beautiful house, drinking sweet tea and watching the birds in my garden. Later, I'll go to the library and read to the children. Tomorrow, I'll meet with my foundation board to discuss our newest grant recipients. My name is Dorothy Mae Henderson. I am 64 years old. I am a mother, a grandmother, a librarian, a philanthropist, and a survivor. And for the first time in my life, I am free.